But Bernie and AOC came out very okay. I haven't heard your opinion on this, Natalie. So I'm curious, like, why you think they did that? Because John and I had differing opinions on this, I think. But I just fresh. What's yours?
I'm so glad you brought this up because I was going to ask you guys if you didn't ask me, because I didn't hear you talk about that, and I was
about to segue to this topic too. Yes, so I'm glad you're all of the same mind.
Yes. Well, I was shocked. If there was one thing that did surprise me during this whole grand experiment, we'll call it, of an election cycle, I was shocked because more so from AOC than from Bernie. And I'm wondering if they weren't as connected necessarily as I thought at first, because I thought, okay, someone got to both of them. But I'm wondering, you know, AOC is at the very beginning of her career and still, and I think that she could go very far with her ambitions if she chose to. And maybe there was a little closed door conversation that said, yo, we've let you get away with a lot. You better step in line with this one at the time that she made that comment. And I wonder with Bernie, because he's at the other side, the end of his career, his legacy, I don't think we want to discount what is said to people when there are no cameras in the room and there's no one else around. And I wonder if there was a little bit of intimidation of get in line or we'll bury you kind of energy going on. Now it already feels like a very long time ago, because now they're all saying that Biden needs to go. And I would be surprised if AOC in particular got behind him on her own without any, let's say, gentle encouragement from the establishment.
So I said this previously, and I still believe it to be true. That Ilhan Omar tweet puts a little bit of wrench in the theory, but I mean, it's not just AOC and Bernie, it's the whole progressive caucus, it's the squad, it's everyone. And Bernie's always been kind of separate from the rest of them. Bernie's kind of his own entity who just agrees with them on most things. He doesn't really act in unison with them. But what I do think, strategically speaking, there's a strong case to be made that if this decision was already made with Pelosi and Schumer, and from what we're hearing now, I mean, Schumer had that conversation with him like 2 weeks ago, I believe. And so like it's coming out now publicly, he's leaking, hey, this is what it was about. I said this. And he's, you know, not denying or not directly denying it now. You know, it's a slow escalation, right? But if it's Bernie, if it's AOC, if it's Ilhan Omar taking the flag and leading the charge against Biden, the story becomes, oh, the progressive side of the party is in revolt.
Exactly.
Whereas if it's coming from, the call is coming from inside the House, it's, oh, the party wants Biden to step down. And I think that, you know, progressives and the left have seen time and time again, we are scapegoats constantly for any time a liberal politician fails. And I think that the progressive caucus was like, we're going to just do our darndest to like put a smile on our face and say, we stand with Joe Biden because we're not getting blamed for this shit this time. And the only reason they would feel comfortable doing that is if they knew Pelosi and Schumer were on their side here and were leading the charge. I think that that's what happened. Now, Ilhan Omar tweeting that and kind of throwing shade, maybe she just personally got fed up. I don't know. She's definitely a little more mavericky against Biden, especially because of the whole Gaza situation. So maybe that's more of she wanted to stake her niche a little outside of that and more against Biden. I don't know, but it does seem to be a strategic decision to me. I would bet my life savings that AOC and Bernie want Biden to step down too.
Can I just add something? I don't completely agree. I hear everything that you're saying and I agree with most of it. But the only thing I would say is when the assassination attempt happened, everything suddenly went quiet around Biden stepping down. All of that kind of dropped. And then that was sort of when AOC said, no, we stand behind Biden, which is why I still think that they were told you need to get behind him, because I don't know if it was that strategic, like weeks and weeks ago, that the establishment wanted him gone. I feel as though this was a more recent development of Pelosi and Schumer really rallying now behind this, because they're really seeing what's going on, because I think for a second there, I thought it was over and Biden was going to stay in after what happened with Trump. But I don't know. I mean, I think you raise a lot of really good points.
When this came up, when John and I talked about it a while back, I had the position that they were going to take this either way. They were going to state to support Biden either way. And my postulation is similar to what you guys said, except that I didn't factor in what the establishment said. I like pretended they didn't exist, because the way I saw it, if they lose either way, if they come out against Biden, if they come out against Biden and Biden wins, it makes them seem even more like pariahs and separate from the Democratic Party. If they come out against Biden and Biden loses, like, oh, well, look what you guys did. You cost Biden the election. So I didn't see any way it could possibly benefit them. Yeah, it makes them look cool to us. Who the fuck cares? It doesn't matter. And so that was my guess. And with Ilhan Omar, so I don't know if she's actually like criticizing what they're saying. I mean, she might agree, but she's criticizing their courage, I think.
I mean, what she's saying there is that, hey, if you're going to say it, just say it.
Yeah.
Which it's not so. That means that she's disagreeing with the strategy. She's not disagreeing with the should Biden step down. She's saying, I'm disagreeing with the way we're going about this.
Yeah.
Means that she isn't in lockstep with the rest. Because if my theory of what's going on is correct, and that the reason that AOC and Bernie and the rest of the progressives are staying quiet is because of a handshake deal with Pelosi and Schumer and the base of the party and party leadership, it means that she's kind of saying, hey, I'm going along with this. I don't like how it's going. Now, my theory of how it's going could be wrong. You know, if my theory of how it's going could be wrong, then a lot of other things are on the table. But I do think that I don't think AOC and Bernie are being intimidated, because who would they be intimidated by? Like, if Schumer and Pelosi are on their side, they're intimidated by Biden? Like, I don't think so. Biden's incredible.
But they're on their side now. I don't know if they were necessarily all on the same page.
Well,
I just think this is moving so fast.
Yeah, if the reporting is true that Schumer 2 weeks ago told Biden that, hey, maybe you should step down. Mm-hmm. I think, again, I may be giving too much credit to Democratic Party leadership.
That could be the thing.
But here's the thing. I am not one to do that. So like,
no, that's fair. That's fair.
I'm definitely biased against them. And I think that they already knew. I think that they already were like, hey, Biden might not be our best chance, but we're sticking with him. And then once the debate happened, that became an untenable position. And that as soon as that happened, I think the wheels started to go in motion. I don't think that you would have had 20 congressmen step forward up until this point without the blessing of party leadership. So to me, just the fact that so many congressmen have already come forward and said straight up he needs to step down is an indicator to me that party leadership was at least friendly to the position of trying to get Biden to step down, which is why I say that's makes sense to me, because we all know, like, if AOC had her way. And you even said like Kamala and Biden are pretty similar, which they are, but Kamala is a step to the left of Biden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, from every logical standpoint, they should want Biden to step down. I think it must be a strategic decision then. And you would only feel very comfortable making that strategic decision if you knew, the bigger guns were fighting for you. And you didn't have to take this fight to the streets yourself. That's how I see it.
Okay.
I have one question, John, because my powers of comprehension are being uncharacteristically poor right now in what you were saying about who are you saying Ilhan Omar is criticizing?
I'm saying this is new information in my theory, and it puts a little bit of a wrench in it, and I'm trying to figure it out. But I think what she's I don't know. Like, it's very cryptic as to she's kind of criticizing everyone. And I think it might be a little bit of just like hey, I'm frustrated and I'm letting you guys know publicly. Like, I don't know. So it seems weird. It just seems like a weird thing to say if you were already going along with this plan of, hey, progressives, be quiet about this or support Biden staunchly, which she seems to have done. Like, she hasn't called for Biden to step down. So why would she be criticizing the people who are going along with that strategy?
See, that's it. I don't think she's I think she's criticizing Schumer and Pelosi and Obama, because they haven't put their names to this. They
That's
just
how
released,
I was interpreting it.
Yeah, like there's because she's like
she's just going, we need to speed up this process, is essentially what she's saying here.
Well, she needs to say, oh, she said that she's calling them cowards. It's like,
but she hasn't, has she called for Biden to step down?
Well, but she hasn't leaked to any news sources. Hey, off the record, I'm saying this, you know, and then it's like, well, sources say Ilhan Omar wants Biden out. And then she's criticizing, like, sources say Obama when you know Obama leaked that. I think it's just like a cowardice thing.
I think it's a weird, again, I haven't followed Ilhan Omar specifically in the saga, so maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like that's a weird thing to say if you haven't staked a claim. Like, if you're kind of just not participating, I think it's weird to say, hey, the way you guys are participating is kind of cowardly. Because, go ahead, Natalie.
I think we're also just reading a lot into something here, because in the sense that, like, people just tweet when they're annoyed. Yeah. And she could have just been like, okay, I'm just, you know, and that was it. And then maybe an hour later, it's like, maybe I should have thought about that.
You know what? So, you know what's funny about this? Ironically, she's like, it's really cowardly that you guys aren't putting your names to these statements and not naming anybody. That's actually pretty cowardly. So
that is. It's like, well, you know?
Don't be subtweeting, you know, these members of Congress here.
Meta conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. Name some names. John, I wrote something down. You mentioned a while ago that how Ilhan Omar doesn't have. Well, she's a lot more outspoken. Like, she rolls the dice a lot more, and she's, you know, takes more risks, and how she's in a more tenuous situation. And it's true. I don't know if you remember Destructo Jugo Ate when he was on the show a while back. He's from Ilhan Omar's district, and he was telling me, yeah, she's not like super popular there, which really surprised me. And she won by like 1.5 points when she ran last time. I thought she was way more popular than that, but yeah, I just want to point out that right there. Another note. Someone said something about Donald Trump not understanding, you know, what songs mean and everything. My favorite example of that was when he played Fortunate Son at one of his rallies or something. It's like that song was written about you, Don. What's going on here?
It's at least Fortunate Son, and like the other big one is Born in the USA.
Born in the USA
is like they don't sound like, they sound patriotic.
They do, yeah.
It's a man's world, very clearly. Like, he's not pro-man. It's a very weird one to misinterpret. There's no
critical thinking here, guys. This is just a man's world. That's a good song. Let's use that. Like, that's all. You guys are way too
We're giving too much credit.
Well, James Brown is cool, and so yeah, of course I'm gonna play It's a Man's World. We do every now. I feel like once a month, we on this show we talk about how conservatives have no fucking media literacy whatsoever. It's just
DJ. It's the next line in the song. It's a man's world.
They didn't get past that line. They just wanted to hear the first line. They just wanted to hear the first line.
In the verses, it's right there in the refrain. It's the next line.
It's so obnoxious.
It's the Republican Party's motto. I only hear what I want to hear.
That's fair. That's fair.
I don't know how they enjoy any art or any media at all when you just don't understand subtext. Yeah, it's fucking obnoxious. All right. Oh, almost perfect timing on that one. So we wanted to go into the Supreme Court for our second topic right here. Natalie requested this one herself, and
I'm already regretting it.
No, John, what did you say yesterday when I sent you that?
We have been trying to talk about the Supreme Court for like 2 months now. Like, every single show, we're like, oh, we'll do this story about the Supreme Court. And then we end up like talking about other things and running out of time. So I'm glad that you kind of said, this is what I want to talk about. And we're like, yeah, let's finally do it. Let's talk about this damn monkey court. Because it has been insane. TJ, did you have like a formal thing that you wanted to say to introduce the
topic? No, but I was thinking, I mean, where do you start? But I was thinking about
it's a good introduction.
Yeah, I know, right? So what I was thinking is we have this election coming up, and the Supreme Court has shown that I think the article I sent was about them granting the president, granting Trump immunity under certain situations or under official acts, which which is a little bit redundant as far as I was concerned, because the president has always had leeway to commit crime under official acts. That's kind of, like assumed immunity when they put it on paper. But I mean, they just did it for Trump's acts they want to deem official. But I'm not the first person thinking about this, but when this election happens, the Republicans are going to be ready with fraud lawsuits if they lose, like, oh, I'm sure. And if those make it to the Supreme Court, they could easily steal this election. Easily. Now, who's going to stop them? And there's nothing we can do about that. Like nothing at all. It is just like we have essentially 6 kings ruling this country right now, or 5 kings and a queen. I didn't notice this until I saw
women can be fascists too, everybody.
More female prison guards.
Yes.
But I saw a picture of the Supreme Court, and I didn't notice that the only 3 liberals are all women. I didn't notice that until like yesterday. I was like, oh my God, I didn't catch that. But Natalie, we brought you on for your oppositional takes. Let's hear how you defend the Supreme Court. Like, how do you want to hear your best takes for Judge Kavanaugh?
Oh man, not happening. Not today, my friend. No, the reason I wanted to talk to you guys about this, and I'll say this first, I'm not a legal expert. I find actually a lot of this very complicated and a little confusing. On my radio show, I have a constitutional law professor. His name's Jerry Dickinson. He comes on all the time with me, and we do a segment called Back to Basics, where he literally breaks down what all of these rulings actually mean in a way that's digestible for us normal people, right? But the reason I wanted to talk about this was honestly a little bit more philosophical, in the sense that what concerns me about what I'm seeing is that we are so distracted by the Trump and Biden show, and I think that is with total intention, that we are ignoring the fact that literally they just criminalized homelessness, right? I mean, they're doing things, they're gutting the EPA. They're creating a situation where the next president really could become very easily a dictator with not much that they would have to do. And so for me, when I wanted to talk about this, it was just more like to say, hey, we need to wake up here. Like, this isn't about Biden and Trump. This is really an existential issue around who this nation wants to become, because the damage has been done. We can't undo the fact that it is a 6-3 split. And if there is a Republican back in the White House in 2024, it could become to the point where we don't see any other type of ruling other than that favors dictators and authoritarianism for the next 50 years. Trump will put people in power that are younger and younger and younger. And what freaks me out is that we're not freaking out about this, right? We're like the frog in the water, where it's like we're just slowly turning up the temperature, and all of a sudden we're boiling to death and we didn't know. And that's what really concerns me. So that's the sunshine that I'm bringing to this topic today, and I welcome your thoughts.
What do you think, John? This good news or bad news? What?
So I mean, it's bad news. However, I do think that when we talk about the Supreme Court, there's a couple of things to remember, that it's not incredibly synchronous with the overall scope of politics. And when we're typically talking about Congress, talking about the president, there's a lot of different incentives for actions that don't always line up with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is an entity in and of itself. In 2020, if they had won it, like, they could have gone along with the coup in 2020, and they didn't. Like, they could have intentionally heard cases and allowed Trump to win them and thrown the entire thing to chaos, and they didn't. What they actually did with the Chevron case, as awful as that ruling was, because essentially, for those who don't know, it took the EPA, the SEC, all of these, the executive branch agencies that are supposed to essentially litigate these laws, because Congress will write a law that says, hey, make sure that companies don't do X. And then it's up to the agency to determine if they're in violation of that law or not. Well, because of the Chevron doctrine. What getting rid of the Chevron doctrine did was it took the power away from the presidency and the executive branch and moved it to the courts. And so I think a lot of people talk about this as, hey, the Supreme Court is in cahoots with Trump and it's going to be this big thing, where I don't think that's the case. I do think that the conservative majority on the court is amenable to Project 2025 and all the things that are going on, and we definitely need to be scared, but I don't think it's in the same way where JD Vance is, you know, Trump says jump and he says how high. I think that they're actually positioning themselves to be an equal power center in that kind of future, because the conflicts that you see, and you see Amy Coney Barrett, you know, in the immunity decision, she kind of she went a little bit more in dissent while concurring and said, hey, like, if he tries to, you know, put his own slate of electors in, that wouldn't be an official act and he shouldn't do that. I think Alito and Scalia, they're all in. I don't necessarily think the ones that Trump actually appointed are so in on the whole coup of it.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird. It is weird. But then again, if you're assuming Trump is competent, he probably would have already been dictator. So he, like, I don't think he necessarily did the best job of picking if that was his goal. But I also don't think that was his entire goal, like the start of his presidency. You know, like, I don't think he envisioned this whole pathway for himself.
I totally disagree here.
Really?
I think we're turning the water up and you're not realizing how hot it is, my friend.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Natalie.
Everything that I'm hearing from my friends in the legal spaces, this shit is bad. This shit is bad. And I think we really should not give them any leeway on their behavior at this court. This court is legislating from the bench. And the thing I do agree with you on, and I'll take it a step further, I don't think they want equal power with the presidency. I think they want more power than the presidency, because I think they are being bought easily. And it's very clear. I mean, look at Clarence Thomas, for example, by the oligarchy in this country to do their bidding. And that's who's really running these things to me. Trump will be gone someday, but this legacy remains. And that's what's got me nervous.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is that I would argue they already have more power than the presidency. They won't expect, because like you mentioned, the presidency is temporary. The presidency is actually constrained by, I believe it or not, it is constrained in a lot of ways by the courts, or as one, and by you know, law codes of ethics. I like that the Supreme Court has not had a code of ethics. I know, has not had a code of ethics the entire time. And then they came up with one, what, a year and a half ago, and which basically said, we need you to be good boys and girls. If you're not, that's too bad. That's pretty much what it was. Yeah. And
there's a lollipop either way.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, you mentioned that you have a constitutional scholar that comes on your show, whatever. And I would just imagine, man, what a fucking know-it-all that guy must be. I don't know what it was like. He's just sitting there talking about ex post facto laws and bills of attainder the entire time. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
You should get him. I'm going to see if he'll do your show, because he would be fantastic. His name's Jerry Dickinson. He ran for Congress here in Pennsylvania. He was adopted, one of many kids. He grew up in the foster care system. He was adopted by white parents. One of his brothers ended up incarcerated. He became a lawyer to really help his community. Jerry is one of the coolest people ever. And God, the man is so freaking bright, but he's so thoughtful and reasonable. And he always, in your defense, John, he always pulls me back from the ledge. He goes, okay, let's just talk this through. And I'm like, okay, because I'm ready to freak out, you know? So he would be a great get. I'll see if you're up for him. I think it'd be a really cool segment.
Well, if you wouldn't mind channeling him for a second, because it's curious that you said he pulls you from the ledge, because I was right about to ask, what, like, you said that people need to be more worried about the Supreme Court, and I agree. And it's honestly the primary reason why it's important to defeat Trump. Like I think like the biggest one of all is that you know, we could easily lose a Supreme Court justice or two in the next over the next 4 years, and allowing the court to go 8-1 is unthinkable. Actually, it's not unthinkable. Like, I can't think about that, but you know, it's just a nightmare. So. People who know this, I think, that do understand the balance of the Supreme Court is, you know, on a razor's edge, and the Republicans have like a 20-year advantage on us going forward, and we have to do everything we can to stem that tide. But what exactly can we do about this other than vote in the next election? I mean, like, what do we do? Like, what do we tell people about this?
Yeah, I love that question because I do think it's important that we obviously vote for president, right? Because that is an important part of all of this. But the people that really impact you on the day-to-day are the ones that are in local positions of power here in our communities. And beyond that, I say get involved with something that means something to you, whether that's an anti-fracking campaign, whether that's paid leave for all, whether that's healthcare for all. I think we think voting is enough, and it's an important part of democracy, but we all need to get off the sidelines and really into the game in multiple ways, because you're right, they played the long game, and there's always that, it's not really a joke, but that saying that Democrats, go to sleep at the wheel for 4 years and then come and vote for every presidential election. Meanwhile, the Republicans have been dealing with the local elections and have been putting their people in place for 30, 40 years now. And we're seeing the ramifications of that in the local courts all over this country, and in local elections. So to me, it's a two-prong approach of you need to vote in every election. They all matter, right down to your council, right in your own backyard. And you need to get involved with at least one organization that means something to you, because what we've really lost sight of in this country is community. Everything is about us versus them. It's actually about all of us together. We are going to sink or swim together. And so building community in real life with people that want to move the ball forward, they may not vote like you, but I think you'll find it interesting. Sometimes there are strange bedfellows that come together on larger issues.
Yeah, and I also just want to clarify. I agree that the temperature is going up. The distinction.
Sean, I didn't mean to get so hot.
No, it's totally fine. And I agree with everything you just said. It's the local. The most impact any individual can have is voting in those local elections, getting those local people in place. But I'm just saying that the worst case scenario that is in all of our minds is Nazi Germany level bad.
Yeah,
and Nazi Germany level bad is the courts are in on it. And that the distinction I'm making is I don't think that's the case. I think the Supreme Court is making its own play. And as TJ said, if the Supreme Court is reigning in the presidency, that worst case scenario probably doesn't happen. The worst case scenario is the courts just do the bidding of the presidency, which would be very, very bad. And I don't think even if we end up with an 8-1 that really becomes the case unless there is a martial coup of some sort. And that's all I was saying there. But no, yeah, it's bad. All of these, the Chevron decision in and of itself, honestly, that's the one that kills me the most. Because the immunity one, I don't actually think that changes anything unless a worst case scenario sort of event happens. The Chevron case it blows up our entire, the way all laws are constructed relied on Chevron. Yeah. And now everything is just a clusterfuck, which I think is really funny coming from the conservative small government side of things. It's we just want lawyers deciding what should and shouldn't be done instead of paid experts. That's the one that really pisses me off the most. And I think will do the most damage long-term. But yeah, it's just going to get worse from here. It doesn't get better unless we change the court.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, please.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think it requires everyone to actually just kind of develop a vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. That's all I was going to say about that. And so I don't know, Natalie, what did you have to add to that?
No, I just love it. The only other thing I was going to add is, I don't want to also discount the severe damage that the fall of Roe has caused to so many pregnant people and women and others around the nation. I just had the woman who was featured in Biden's ad called Willow. Her name is Amanda Zarowski, and she was pregnant in Texas. And I had her on the radio talking about what happened after Roe fell. She had a miscarriage, went septic. The doctors were not allowed to treat her. They were all freaking out. They said, we can't do anything for you until you're basically near death. So she ended up going back 3 days later, almost did die, and is now permanently, the damage was so bad to her internal organs that she'll probably never be able to have a child. And so I think you know, when we talk about these high-minded ideas and we talk about these statistics and these numbers, we forget real people are being harmed. And it's counterproductive, right? The issue of abortion is a perfect example of there were more abortions in 2023 than ever. And our infant mortality rate rose, I think, 12% or 21%. It rose significantly.
Maternal
and this is
mortality rate too.
Yes, and the maternal mortality rate. So these are things that are killing us and maiming us and causing great, great harm. And we know that they're going to impact Black, brown, and working class communities harder than most. And so to me, it's like all of this intertwines together, and it really comes down to who is benefiting with these new, you know, laws being either put in place or chaos being put in place, and why are people supporting those who are actively harming them. And that's what concerns me the most when we get back to the philosophical point of this, is who do we want to be moving forward? Because these people are not working for your best interest, no matter what they tell you.
All right, guys, you made it to the end of the episode, which means you are one of our favorite viewers. Thank you so much. And with any luck, we're recording this on Thursday. Maybe Biden has already stepped down right now. And if he has, you better be commenting, liking, subscribing, and everything about how happy you are to see it. If you guys enjoyed listening to our wonderful guest this week, I'll let her tell you where you can find her other places.
I have them tongue-tied, you know. Hey, everybody, I'm Natalie Ben. You can find me at Natalie Ben on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok. I have a website, nataliebensavenga.com. You can also check me out on the radio, 100.1 FM and AM 1020 KDKA here in Pittsburgh. And if you're outside of Pittsburgh, go to kdkaradio.com and you can stream it live or play it back. I talk about all these things, and I got to get both of these guys on my show. So stay tuned for that.
Fantastic. We appreciate the offer there, Natalie. We'll join as soon as we can. Thank you guys for watching the show, and we would like to welcome you all to the Neo-K Hive. We are glad to have you here, and we are going to go strong. Kamala's our mamala. Catch you next time.